there's myself, my pillar and my passion is mental health and well-being. As going through my own experiences of mental health, coming from ironically a corporate background, going through the sort of experiences of institutional racism and other things that have happened. I've did go through the experience of being a Black person within the sort of British culture, British society, British industries, and having to find my own feet, having to basically save myself through general stereotypes that are real, that are too real. So off the back of my healing and my own recovery, I started to look a lot more into mental health and look a lot more into the sort of stigmas and taboos and environments that we are sort of once again currently living in. I've gone through mental health first aider training for adults and youth, so I can identify different challenges that people are going through themselves, and I'm really pursuing a lot of mental health focused courses and solutions for our community. So that's something that I'm once again also connecting with a lot of people, a lot of organizations who are already doing amazing jobs out there, helping people, having referrals and sort of helping people sort of guide them to what we could find as a solution. And that ties very nicely into well-being and wellness, which all the guys within the team are all martial artists and fitness. As you can see, Patrick himself, I'm sure if you've seen his profile, he's like a specimen. So all of us are very enthusiastic about our well-being and training and that as well with ourselves, our children and our families. And then Pat, I'll open the floor to yourself in regards to you and your pillar.
So me, I'm pretty much what you see kind of with me is kind of what you get. You know, I've had a lot of positive feedback since that day, but there has been some negative as well. Some people may say that I am, I don't know, a little bit too inclusive, too much about unity and all the rest of it. You know, maybe the more extreme ends of the Black community, maybe. You know, I know some of us feel that we can do this on our own and we don't need the help of anybody, blah, blah, blah. I'm not of that mindset. I don't agree. But obviously, you know, we're all here to agree and disagree and respect one another's opinions. That's the most important thing. So I'm kind of what you see is what you get with me. I'm a very quiet individual. I very family orientated in terms of my children and my grandchildren. If I'm a friend of yours, you've got like a true friend for life that will just tell you how it is, whether you're going to like it or not. I will do it in a respectful way, but I will come at you in a way that you can hopefully later on sit down when you self-reflect and think to yourself, you know what, maybe he could be right there, or because you need people around you that can tell you things straight up. You know, you can't always hear things, you know, receive information in a way that your palate likes. You know, you have to be able to take the rough with the smooth, I think. So I'm that kind of individual, and I will help anybody where possible, where I can. You know, I'm always been that person that will help someone in need, and I've been doing it all my life. And it just so happens that I've been caught on camera doing it, and now like everybody knows who I am, which has its pluses but has lots of minuses too. But yeah, that's really me in a nutshell, really. And like Chris says, you know, I love my training. You know, keeping fit at 50 is my mantra. And I just like to do anything that's going to help with my mental well-being and my physical fitness, because I really believe that those two things go hand in hand. And, you know, I like to think I'm a prime example of that. Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it wasn't actually pre-UTCAI. It was so pre-UTCAI, I was personal training, coaching children in athletics. So I left the corporate world. I left that. I'm 50 now. I left it about 41, 42. I left the corporate world. Prior to that, I was working 25 years in IT, mainly investment banking, in the infrastructure side of things. And then I went on to project management. In that time, I think when I got to about the age of 35, I started to feel a bit discontented with everything. I think when you're younger, you kind of want to go up, climb up the ladder. You're trying to be independent, move out of your parents' home and all sorts. So you're just there to work and earn money, as they say, bring home P. That's all you want to do. And I had young children as well. So it was just all about that. But when you get to a certain age, I think for me it was 35, you start to realize that it's not just about the money. I'm not happy where I am. I'm not happy being treated a certain way. I'm not happy taking orders from people who have been here 5 minutes when I've been here like 10, 15 years. And then some cat comes in and before you know it, they've excelled way past you. And then you're taking orders from them and stuff like, little things like that. So eventually I decided, what's that, 6 years on, that I couldn't do it anymore. And I decided actually my contract wasn't renewed. But what had happened is that my performance levels had slipped. And so, the manager sat me down, said, we're not going to renew your contract. And I was in total agreement. And that was the end of that. We parted ways. And I never really had the guts to leave because the money was so good. The financial gain was more of a reward for me at the time than my own mental well-being. So I stuck with it. So in the end, it was them that sort of got rid of me, and I was really grateful for it because I needed that kick, because I probably would have stayed there possibly till this day, earning the money, but probably be a mental wreck by now,
I'm very similar to Pat's. It's ironic that he's actually saying 35 because that's generally the age where, I left my corporate banking career, of a 15-year career in corporate banking. I left that last year, November. And it was very similar to Pat's. I'm blessed and grateful that had a lot of amazing experiences there. I was able to become a leader very early on, built an amazing network, and there are a lot of positive individuals that you can meet in any industry that you work in. My personal challenges, though, were very similar to Pat's, as in the sort of level of progression and a lot of the even though it's not initially said, even though it's not said firsthand, there are a lot of barriers that are there in regards to your own progression. There's always a reason why you can't go forward. There was a stage where I wasn't actually promoted to leadership until I cut my care roll off. Literally the week I cut my care roll off, I got promoted to being a manager. And for me, that was almost soul destroying. And on one hand, I did have leaders who were there and happy to tell me the truth and say, look, you don't fit the character, you don't fit this part, just do this and just conform. So I was faced with a lot of challenges over the years where, in order to progress, even though I do have I always get told I sound the right way, I do speak the right sort of language, and I can articulate myself well and I can present myself well, there's always a reason for not being put forward. And without trying to sort of victimize myself at times, because I was always, once again, having a mental battle with myself as a case of, well, I do consider myself quite privileged compared to some of the other people that I've grown up with. And I am here in this bank. I should be grateful. And I'm given this opportunity. Not everybody is. And I can have this focus. There's still the challenge of, but am I losing my own identity in order to try and achieve this, in order to try and be able to afford the mortgage that I've got, be able to afford my family and be able to build a good name and a good reputable name for my family? I'm challenged and kind of picture in a position where you're literally going into work every day, being somebody else, looking in the mirror, having conversations which don't really align with your own values. I'm not a guy that would go for the cigarette break. And I always used to find that impacted me because a lot of those sort of promotional conversations would happen within those circles. I'm not really the guy that would go out for drinks after work. I would want to get back to my family or get to training. And I think that did hinder me quite a lot. So when I'm coming into work the next day and they're having the sort of the fist bumps and, yeah, last night was great, let's continue that kind of conversation on our next cigarette break. And sort of, I almost felt like I alienated myself from a lot of those sort of experiences, which also did hinder on my own development. And I too, at the end of my career, did go for an assessment, ironically, for a role that I was doing for like 18 months. And it didn't go the way I felt it should have gone. But everything was done, can I say, in a legal way where I couldn't really sort of complain about it or have any sort of leg to stand on. And one of the last conversations I had with one of the leaders was quite a negative one. And coming from a leadership position, nothing was positioned in a way that I could really argue about it. So I just had to ask myself, am I really, like, I was advised by my mentors to take it to a grievance if I did want to, because they did feel I had a good ground to stand on. But then I thought, is this really a battle that I want to sort of fight for? I'm working in an organization who do have values, but don't really adhere to those values when it comes down to the crux of it, especially for a lot of their people, if you don't fit the sort of criteria that they want. So maybe I'll just take this as a sign to sort of move on and take the experiences that I've had, take the network that I have, and try and build off that, and also start my own journey of self-discovery. So my journey was, I would say it's been a balanced journey. Once again, I've been connected to a lot. I've done project management, I've done leadership, design. There's a lot of different experiences that I've had that a lot of people could only dream of. So I'm grateful for the environment that I worked in, but at the same time, I identify it as one of my biggest sayings is you have to sometimes go through hell to get to heaven. And a lot of the experiences I had throughout there were hellish, but there was also a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, because if I didn't go through all the experiences, I wouldn't be able to connect with people that I see going through those same challenges now and be able to mentor or coach or help or guide. And yeah, that's some of the, just a sort of sprinkle of the experiences that I've had sort of in the corporate industry.
I think for me, it would center around no longer enjoying the environment, the working environment, the people and myself, not, I don't know, we're just being different types of people. So the stuff that Chris just mentioned about the fag breaks and the going out drinking, that just wasn't me either. So different, we're just different type of people. And my mental well-being, probably the biggest thing, just mentally, it was breaking me down slowly, bit by bit. And I used to, some of this is in my book actually, I used to sit on the edge of my bed on a Sunday evening thinking, tomorrow morning I've got to go back to work. And I really don't want to do it. Don't want to get up 4:45 in the morning, get to work in the city at 6:30. Don't want to do it. And I should somehow, sometimes, children can be your biggest drives in life. And if I hadn't had my children, I know for a fact I wouldn't have done it. Who knows what I would have been doing, but I wouldn't have been working in the city and providing for them. But I had children to provide for, so that's why I did it.
In regards to saving myself, I've completely resonated to what Pat said. I was literally sat on the top of a tower called Canary Wharf, high floor, looking out the window on a regular basis, literally questioning myself, like, is this my purpose in life? I remember having daily conversations of being literally staring out the window, and it was some really low and dark times that I had to really tell myself that it's not me, and it's okay that it's not me. It's okay that to try and do something else and want to change and not be afraid of change. And that change did mean swallowing a lot of ego, a lot of pride, letting go a lot, detaching from a lot as well, because not everybody will be able to come along that journey with me. So mine was a case of saving myself, but not only the sake of saving myself, more for the reason of what Pat said as well. Was so when my children do come to a point where they want to choose their career paths, they can at least see a role model, or see that, do you know what, mummy's a teacher and mummy loves doing teach, because my lady's a teacher and she loves her job. It is a sort of 9-to-5 industry kind of job. And daddy did the corporate thing, but at the same time, when he chose that he didn't want to do that, well, it wasn't right for him, at least he had the courage and to go through that change. And at least he had the courage to try something entrepreneurial, even if it does or doesn't work. It's losing that fear of failure, or losing that fear of not getting it right first time. So I had to literally push myself through that. And like Pat said, one, I wouldn't have been in that career if it wasn't for my children, because I decided I wanted to become a leader as soon as I had my son in 2008. He was my biggest drive and one of my biggest reasons for cutting my hair and just swallowing that pill, and doing the hard thing. But then at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, they were also my reason for not staying there, because like Pat said as well, rightfully so, my mental well-being was just so low. So I thought, I can't be a good father, I can't be a good role model, I can't be the best I can if I can't even be myself. So that was one of my biggest drives, one of my biggest reasons to step away from that environment. And I had to do root cause analysis of what was sort of putting me down and what was affecting my mental well-being. And it was one of the things was my job at the time, and the lifestyle that was just a false lifestyle. Oh, my lowest point. There were 2 points which come to mind specifically. One, I was on a high level, I was on a high floor in Canary Wharf where I used to work. One of them was, there was a project that I was running, or that I was working on, that I was leading, a design project. And I had a few hours to sort, it was literally the next day that I had the deadline for. And I remember being in the office at about I think it was just up to about just past 9. And completely empty. The floor was completely empty. Just one or other 2 people that were there that were quite depressed themselves. I could see that they were quite depressed. They didn't want to go home to their families. And I remember looking at them and sort of seeing myself. And my reasons for being there wasn't because I didn't want to go home. My reason for being there was actually because I was trying to keep the job. And the difference I saw between myself and them was they have the job, they have the sort of privilege, they have the lifestyle, they have everything, but they weren't content or happy with it. Or there's an element of guilt or whatever they were going through. And mine was different. I was trying to hold on to the job because of fear of losing that. And I was really questioning myself on whether I had enough value in my life to sort of continue going on. And I remember going down to the train station and just watching trains go by and just thinking sort of really low thoughts in regards to sort of, if this is life, if this is my purpose, then is it really worthwhile sort of continuing? But then once again, I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I've got an amazing network. I do have an amazing family, amazing friends, amazing mentors and coaches, and I do my martial arts as well as a form of therapy for myself. And I was able to sort of go back in my mind and within my own consciousness and sort of tap into a lot of the conversations that I have, a lot of the interactions I have, a lot of the positive things that I do have that I am so grateful for. And one of the top things there was my children. So it's once again, it's me going through my hell to identify my heaven and identify my light through that sort of torment, through that trauma that I was sort of experiencing. And a lot of and also realizing that it is a choice. It was a choice that I was making. I was choosing to go to work every day. Yes, I did have the burden and the weight of the relationship, of the family expectations that I put on myself or that I may have projected. But at the same time, it was a choice. And a year on, everything that's happened in my life since stepping away from that and choosing to go through and embrace the unknown, a year on, I'm sat on a interview with you guys. It's Tuesday afternoon, is it? On a Tuesday afternoon, sat on an interview with yourselves, my family, my children around me, and my life has just evolved so much since. I can only sort of, encourage that kind of choices, that encourage other people within our community to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but the light is from within. We do really need to start that journey of self-searching, and that's what I'm on. I'm on a journey of recovery myself. I'm on a journey of soul-searching myself. It's a journey of discovery, finding out who I am, finding out about my ancestors, finding out about my purpose, about what I choose to value, and not what society or media has sort of programmed or conditioned me to think is important.
Yeah, my lowest points would definitely have been just, Friday. You have a Friday where the weekend is here, and I'm not thinking about the weekend. I'm thinking about the following Monday before I've even enjoyed the weekend. And then Saturday, full of like trepidation, and then Sunday comes and so I basically didn't even enjoy my weekends purely because of the thought of going back to work the following Monday. So that I would say those were my lowest points when I couldn't even enjoy the time off because I would dread going back in. Those were 100% the lowest points. And then obviously the turning point for me literally is when my contract wasn't renewed. That was literally the turning point, because had it not been for them laying me off, I really don't know how long it would have taken me to pluck up the courage to walk out of the door myself. And I feel like this is the trap of the corporate world. The money is like a trap. And once you start earning that money and you take on, I don't know, large financial commitments like your mortgage, your house and your cars and whatever else, you can't just walk out of a job that's when you're earning 60, 70,000 a year upwards. You can't just walk out, when you've got financial commitments, because it's not that easy to just find a job that's going to replace that kind of income. I walked out on a job with those sort of figures, and I ended up earning just about 20k personal training in the beginning. And that's a serious financial hit. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not for everybody to do, and that's why you find people, in the corporate world working and continually working and destroying their mental well-being, but they're doing it because they feel like they don't have a choice. I guess what I would say is that my children were happier in a sense that they saw me more. So I was able to do more of the school run type things and just take them to all their classes and their numerous extracurricular activities. So they would have been a lot happier. But I guess the financial burden was just mine, really, to deal with and figure out, make ends meet and do whatever I had to do. So that was just my burden. So in terms of my family, they would have been a lot happier. No matter, even though the financial burden was there and the financial difficulty was there, I was 100% happier.
Yeah.
100% happier, 100% happier. Like, that's how much, once I'd left, I realized that I needed to be out of that space, because if I can have all these financial difficulties to deal with, and let's have bear no bones about it. Some people commit suicide over financial problems. I mean, I would never consider doing something like that. But for some people, financial situation can be that deep for them. They can take their lives over it. But for me, man, I'd rather have that any day than be working in a place that was, slowly killing me. So, yeah, it was no comparison. It was definitely the right thing to do, even though, I had to take care of the financial side of things. Working, being stressed at work in the corporate space, I felt like it then transferred over into my private life, because then you're not that jovial, that happy person, because you're continually stressed and under pressure. Because the thing with the corporate world, it's a very it's a pressure cooker atmosphere. Like, people are paid a lot of money, and they're paid a lot of money because of the pressure that they endure. And they'll tell you the lifespan of people in the corporate world, like especially up in the city, like the traders and those people, the lifespan is like, it's crazy. Like, they burn out like in their mid-30s. They're burnt out, done, finished. Do you know what I'm saying? A lot of them. And for what? For earning a lot of money in a short space of time, but it's just not worth it. So no, definitely. Once I left, I was a much nicer. I was more the person that people knew me to be before I started working up in the city. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say every single thing was bad, because it wasn't. In the early days, when all you care about is earning money, it's brilliant for those. When you're young, it's a nice, vibrant atmosphere. You get to meet people, like Chris mentioned earlier. If you've been to uni, some of your uni friends might end up working in the city with you, and you can have. It can be another part of your life, like when you go to school, when you go to university, and when you go to work. It can be in your 20s, I would say, maybe some of your early 30s. It can be a really good place to be. You can meet lots of people and do, lots of happy experiences. But like, there's the other side to it. There is the other side to it. So you have to be wary that, I think it's nice to experience it, but I think you should give yourself a time limit.
Once again, it's almost echoing what Pat said. Ironically, my son's here and he heard the question. He actually said he missed me a lot when I used to work at Barclays. And personally, one of the things I always did implement into my almost contract or agreements I had with my leaders, I've always been an advocate of doing my children's school runs, at least in the morning or after work. It's something that my parents always did. My dad was an accountant, my mum worked in the NHS, and they were always able to do the school runs. And it's a very big, fundamental part of my childhood that I used to love. So I've always, even to my detriment at times, factored that into my contracts. If I've gone to manage in a branch anywhere, or I've gone to work in a corporate, like in a location anywhere, I always make sure I do my kids' school run. So at least that element, I can have that experience with doing the sort of morning runs. But however, exactly what Pat said is when the stresses did pile on, when it did come to the challenges and the microaggressions or everything else that was happening sort of in that sort of environment, it does have a big impact in your relationships, not only with yourself, but with your partners, I remember going through things with my parents, with my siblings, with my friends, outbursts that I would have. Like, I've always run my businesses and my enterprises on the side, and I've lost a lot of friends and business partners through relationships and experiences I can remember where I potentially have had outbursts from things that I was internalizing from work that I would take home, or I'll come back and I'll be sort of quite snappy. And I had to find different outlets where I can, without, once again, balancing family time, balancing the corporate work time, I'd have to find outlets where I can go and express myself. And for me, that was my martial arts and my fitness. So it was kind of a win-win situation. I'm being able to sort of channel that energy there and also get fit at the same time. But yes, answer to the question, it does impact you at home and in your sort of personal relationships. And if you can't have an objective perspective or perspective of that and see how it's damaging relationships, because it did have a massive strain on my relationship, even with my lady that I've been with for up to 15 years now. It put a massive strain on our relationship. And one of the big main things I say now on a daily basis when people ask me how I am, I always say I'm blessed and grateful. And I absolutely mean that, because one, for my lady, the amount of turmoil that she's helped me, guided me through, I can only be so appreciative of having a strong Black woman as well. And I call her homegrown. She grew up in Cameroon and then came here when she was 18. So she's got all the values that I love in a woman. And to me personally, I say all the time, to me, women are gods. Like, in my world, in my dimension, women are gods. And I've literally got one of his angels, or one of her angels kind of thing here with me, raising my children in our image. So I wasn't able to appreciate that as much when I was working in that sort of environment. And I'm only blessed and grateful that I was able to sort of come through that and be able to just have an objective perspective and appreciation of that. And now I do get a lot of people from, ironically, a lot of the organizations that I used to work for reaching out to me for guidance, like for mentorship, guidance, for coaching, because they're going through that. And like Pat said earlier, it is sort of catch-22 scenario, because a lot of them do want to leave that environment but don't know how to do it. So I have a lot of people sort of reaching out to me saying, "Oh, what can I do? Well, I've still got the bills to pay. I've still got, family that depended on me. I've still got all the responsibilities and the debt and everything else that comes along with it. How do you do that?" When I did my last assessment and I wasn't successful on the assessment, and I remember being sat in the office, and similar to Pat, if I didn't go through that level of rejection, which is what I'll call it, I wouldn't be where I was now. And I had to really make me question my purpose of even existing. And at that time, I don't know if you've seen the film Soul, the new Disney film Soul. I'm not promoting it. I'm not saying this go and watch and all that. But there's a real example of a really good example of my experience in Soul. When I was watching it, my lady was sat next to me. She was literally like, "Chris, is that not how you felt you went through? What you felt you went through? Like, you were," because I was rejected at that time and I was so low and so distraught and so afraid of failure. And how am I going to tell people that I'm not going to be able to, that I'm going to have to sort of change career or change roles? It made me really look at everything I was doing and assess it and assess myself, and ask myself a lot of hard-hitting questions. Am I being the best I can be? No, I'm not. Am I happy? Job satisfaction? No, I'm not. Am I, just evolving? No, I'm not. I'm just actually comfortable. I was earning a set salary, which I thought was a good lifestyle at the time, and I then had to start. I do personally feel I went through a mental breakdown, so I did kind of crumble and crush and go inside, and I actually couldn't see myself going that much further in life. If I'm going to be completely honest, I couldn't see going into the sort of next month or even going into the next year, right, at that stage. But one thing that did help me is I did start talking to people. I was suffering in silence for quite a while. I was suffering in silence. And then I started to open up, and I'm not sure whether it was because of my lady or because of my training and the people that are around me, but I started to just talk. I was always built up to be somebody that people come to with their problems, but I always internalized my own. So I was being quite a hypocrite. And when I started to talk more and started to engage, and I actually started to find out a lot of people in my network had gone through quite similar experiences. And I was able to be guided, and sort of people took me under their wing. And that's how my journey of light started. And I started to train more and compete more in martial arts, and spend more time with the family, and start to sort of build a lot of my own enterprises. I got, once again, I'm blessed that I've got a network that are still supporting and are still sort of connecting me, and sort of aligning our forces, similar to what we're doing now with the Black Knowledge Society. So that's how my light did start. I actually did go to my GP. There was a point where I was really low, and I did go to my GP, and it's an experience I've had quite a lot from people who are connected with. They actually did give me antidepressants at the time, and I didn't take them. I've never been a person for sort of, not saying that's the right thing to do, because everybody, once again, is built differently in regards to our genetic systems and everything else. So I'm not saying that that's the right solution for everyone, but I personally didn't feel I wanted to. There was just something about it that wasn't right for me. So I started to go more into natural remedies. So I started to look at stuff like shilajit, ashwagandha, Irish moss, ginger, turmeric, things that I'm now literally within my daily diet, and which my children take. Well, not all of them, but my children take a lot of them as well. And I aligned that with my natural eating, and I started meditating and doing a lot more yoga. So I started to do a lot more sort of natural things, and it's also stuff doing research into our sort of ancestral values and our ancestral sort of faith systems, like spirituality, and that I started to sort of heal myself, which I feel we all have the power to do. So yes, answer to your question is I was actually given antidepressants. I didn't go down that route of that. And it was more a sense of talking to people within my network, and not being afraid of how can I say it, not failing, but not being afraid of not getting it right first time. Because that was one of my biggest things that kept me within that environment, that I was afraid that if I left it, I would lose friends or my family would be disappointed. My lady, my children, and my parents and my siblings were the first people that I actually said, look, I'm not going to be working for Barclays anymore. I'm actually resigning. I failed an interview. I was offered another position, but I'm not going to take it. I'm going to actually resign. And I was so afraid that that circle, to start with, would reject that idea and potentially reject me and not accept that decision, especially my dad, who's an accountant, Nigerian accountant, very much proud, so proud. And I'm so grateful that they were proud of me being in that environment. And I was so afraid that I wouldn't be accepted because I'm choosing to do something that's not conformative to sort of our culture, or being that sort of having the title kind of thing. And those for me were the biggest hurdles. And when I told, ironically, that circle, and they all accepted, they were all like, Chris, we can see that you're not yourself. Like Patrick said, I mean, you're a different person from when you went in. And I don't know how long you can continue doing that. And I told my parents I was so low, and my lady, and I'm so grateful that they all literally just turned around and said, Chris, we accept you as you are. We just want you to be happy. But I didn't know that at the time. That was one of my biggest hurdles. But when I had that sort of acceptance from my family and that love for my family, it made me realize that any other form of external validation isn't necessary.
Powerful.
Your job, they'll replace you within a day, which technically happened. Your friends, if they're real, true and real friends, they'll be there for you. And I think that's all you need to sort of focus on the positive elements of your life, you know. But that's once again my experience.
I think, like, by nature, I'm more of a listener than a talker. So I think where people like have offloaded on me a lot in the past, I'm still ashamed to say that I still don't probably share enough or talk enough about my own personal issues. But like, that's something I'm working on. But what I think cured me, or what's always really worked really well for me, is helping other people. It's almost addictive, like just seeing people's appreciation when you do really good things for them.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like a drug to me. Like, this is why I do good things. Like, it just if people realised how it makes you feel to do good for other people, I think a lot of more people would do more good for others, and I feel like the world would just like almost be healed overnight if people actually understood that. And one of the things I used to do when I was in the corporate world is I used to coach football on the weekends. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed. It was mainly boys. It wasn't one or two girls, but it's mainly young boys. They would really look up to me. They'd really, like, if I wasn't there, coach, where were you last week? Blah, blah, blah. And I really, really loved it. And so when I left the corporate world, I got approached to do some coaching, athletics coaching, which I still do up to this day. And being able to coach the children, be a part of their lives, be a mentor to them. I've even been called up to schools for some of the young men, because I don't know if you know, well, most of us know this, but some of us don't know this, but a lot of the most talented athletes, whether it be track or football, are some of the most troubled children when it comes to home life and everything else. And so we had a few young men who were getting into a lot of trouble at school, but they were wonderful track athletes and they were wonderful to coach. So I got randomly called in to their schools just off the off chance, like, you know, we've heard that you have a really good relationship with such and such, and we'd like you to come into the school and have a chat with the head teachers because he's about to get kicked out of the school and blah, blah, blah. So I've been down to a couple of schools on behalf of a couple of young men who were almost on the way out of school. And I was able to give the head teachers and some of the senior teachers another perspective of that young individual, and then they were given another chance based off what I had told them, you know. And then I thought to myself, this is something that I feel like, I can do more of. And so I feel that that's what's cured me, like just being able to help others, especially young people, and be a difference in their lives if they call me up for advice or anything, like these things help me. Like it's it's a cure for me, helping them and helping anybody.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my cure, was helping other people, realizing that was I feel like that is my purpose in life, to try and help others, where I can. The only thing I took to HR, so all my other issues I had, I just sat with them, I guess. But the one issue I did take to them was a pay gap between myself and a few colleagues, because although you're not supposed to discuss salaries, people do it all the time. And it became apparent that I was earning like quite a bit less than my counterparts. So I took it straight to HR. I took it to the senior manager, then he tried to say whatever, and then I took it to HR and I got my pay rise. It was pretty straightforward, really. I think they realized pretty quickly that if I took this further, I'd have probably a good case for some sort of
yeah,
external tribunal or whatever. So they rectified it pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that was the only thing a grievance I ever took up. I did obviously feel awkward about doing it, but funny enough, when I spoke to the senior manager at the time, and he was somebody that I didn't get along with, myself and my agent, I had an Asian friend as well, we didn't get along with him and we knew why. So because of him and him trying to belittle it or sweep it under the carpet, it gave me the strength I needed to sort of push forward with it, because I knew the guy didn't like me. And so if he said, no, disagree, you know, your payment's in line with your ability, blah, 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 and all the rest of it, basically saying that the other guy's better than you. So, yeah, just take what we are and be quiet. But I wasn't going to have it. So then I took it to HR in it, and then they quickly sorted it out. This is the one place where I worked where the manager was definitely a racist, and I didn't like him. He didn't like me, and didn't get on with him. And you know, that was one particular place, and I mentioned that place in my book. But yeah, that's the only place where anytime I ever took a grievance.
The grievance I did initially take out, I ended up withdrawing it. Unfortunately, I almost do regret doing that. Was in regards to bullying from leadership as well. It's a time when I was a leader myself, and there were decisions that I was being pressured into making that I didn't agree with, and a lot of it to do with people within our community, and sort of patterns that I started to identify of things that I was being asked to do that once again didn't align with my values. And when I did actually pluck up the courage to address that with my leader at the time, I was literally told that, look, if you're not willing to do the role or the job, there's however X many people that look exactly like you that would do triple your work for less than half of your salary. So just move on if you're not willing to do it, which on one hand, I guess that they were right. Because it technically is what happened. I did change role at the time, stayed within the same company, but changed role within the time. And when I did log the grievance, one thing that was also made apparent very early on when I actually joined the leadership team was a lot of the leaders do have very strong connections with people who are in the union or who are the people who are in HR as well. So I remember when I actually logged the grievance, I had to specifically put down, can this not go to the attention of X, Y, Z? But within 24 hours of me raising the grievance, I got a call from that leader that I was logging the grievance against. And they made it apparent, they made it known that they were aware I'd logged the grievance. It's come back to them already that they've already got connections that will go against me. So be very mindful of my next steps. And I ended up sort of carrying out and withdrawing sort of the grievance and just trying to once again just bear with it, and ended up leaving that department. Once again, it's a blessing in disguise because I didn't leave that department completely and go progress to a sort of another team. But my mind's always been on a lot of the leaders and individuals or staff members who are suffering in silence and don't feel they have sort of allies to sort of go to and the places where you're supposed to go to sort of get that solution or get help and support. Unfortunately, it's a sort of double-edged sword. It's hard to say because once again, for me, having an independent review or having a unbiased sort of team working in my case is like it's like going to the police. The same relationship that our community have with the police. How much confidence can our community have in the police, where it's a system that's not designed for our safety or protection? I'm not saying every police officer is a bad officer. I know several officers who are good people, but it's the same experience that I've had with the police. Unfortunately, there's too many people in too many positions which aren't helpful to our sort of progression, and that's the experience that I had with the sort of union team. and there were too many people who had been knee deep within those sort of environments that I knew if they had got a copy of my report, would have gone straight back to the sort of person that I'm trying to that I was trying to avoid. I'm not sure. Once again, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that was my personal experience, and the only thing that I can relate it to, sort of mentally, is a police service. I'm not.
Yeah.
If anything happens within my family or if anything happens within my community, I have to really think twice, long and hard about whether I'm actually going to call the police for help, because I don't feel the police, ironically, are doing their job. The police are a service that's designed to protect property. So all the lingo that they have, a lot of the statements and things that they come out with, they're actually not doing anything illegal. They're doing their jobs within their legal rights. So me then complaining about the police, like, oh, you're doing this and you're not doing it in my favor. They're actually doing what they're being paid to do. So I had to have that same perspective with my union team, with my HR team, with anybody that I would have gone to. And then once again, but the leaders I had at the time made it apparent that they're woven in with the HR team, with the union team, with any team that we'll go to. They know X, Y, Z. They know, they're in the know. So for me, I was also blessed to have mentors. I have more than one mentor. In each department I've worked in, I always have people who are experienced, who have been there, who are not saying that they've been there for, like, some people are seasoned, some people are new, and some people are good at progression and different elements, different values that they can add. So I would always go to guidance. I would always try and make sure I'm a very reflective person. So any experience I was having, I'd always go to different mentors I had, whether it's my life mentor or my sort of one of my jiu-jitsu coaches or whatever mentors that I have, and I'll say, look, this is my experience. What's your perspective? And if I'm the common denominator, or if there's things that I can make small influential changes, or that I have the influence to change, then I'll do that. And when it came down to my career at the time, my purpose of going to take an agreement like that was because I wanted to progress further. And without me doing or conforming or doing things that I didn't agree with, I would not have been able to progress. But then I need to also identify, did I actually want to grow in that job? And at the time, I was under the illusion that I did. But when I actually took an objective perspective and stood back and looked at the leaders or the people who were excelling in that role, I realized actually that's not somebody who I want to be. That's not actually a character that I want, whether it's a director level or CEO. I'm talking to the CEOs, I knew the directors. I actually don't aspire to be like these people. So what is it? Is it the salary? Because there's other roles I could do with that salary. There's other career paths I could take and attain that salary. Is it the salary? Is it the network? What was it? And when I really assessed it, I identified that actually, you know what? It's not something that's worth my mental health, mental well-being, because it was something that was deteriorating me at the time as well. That was deteriorating me. So I literally took a step back and identified that it's actually not a battle that I need to try and win. I need to let go of my ego. I need to accept that this is the way it is in that environment. And if it's the environment that I wasn't happy with, maybe I need to change that and maybe build my own fortified environment, which is going to actually adhere to the values, which is exactly what I'm doing now.
Ultimately, that, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the question where, do you tell your children you have to be 10 times better? Because there's a school of thought, like a lot of us were raised with our parents telling us we have to be 10 times better to get what we want because, of the way society is. And I've decided I'm not telling my children that, because society needs to fix up and take my children for who they are and give them a fair crack at a fair chance. And not be judging them on anything else other than their ability and the content of their character, right? So I decided I'm not going to tell them to be, if I told them to be better, it's because they need to be better for themselves, but not because they're black and they're going to not be treated equally. So that reminds me a little bit of that question when you say, should we almost like dumb it down to be accepted within the white corporate space? For me, my answer is no. And I feel like white corporate space needs to catch up, like society needs to catch up. And these are the things that, like with UTCAI, for example, and all these other corporations, you've got the Black Business Institute, who I'm on the advisory board of. this is the job that we're trying to do to create the level playing field out there, so we don't have to ask these type of questions. They just accept us for who we are and for what we can bring to the table, and that's it.
I would say very similar, but more so. There are a lot of opportunities that we can get working in, as you said, like white corporate spaces, and it is the environment that we have. Unfortunately, we don't have our own infrastructures for the moment, or we don't have enough of our own infrastructures and foundations, and should I say, black corporate spaces right now. Unfortunately, we're not in a reality yet where that exists. So we can. A lot of other communities have spaces where they can be safe, where they can be valued. From the Jewish community, Oriental to Asian to Eastern European, we're practically the only community that don't have that infrastructure. That is changing now. Comparing to myself in 2008, when I had to cut my hair to try and get a promotion. We're now in a society where I'm seeing people walking in suits with dreadlocks, with their K-roll, with their hair. I'm seeing like beautiful Nubian women with their hair out and everything, natural, everything that we have, and able to go to work. Obviously, a lot of that has been more prevalent since the whole protests have started. But times are changing. And once again, the choice is ours, whether we want to stay in those corporate spaces and try and grow and build those infrastructures and those communities, or whether we want to actually try and build that build our own enterprises and sort of be more entrepreneurial and just have the belief in ourselves. I take the value from every experience I've had for every career I've worked in. I take the experience and I take the value that's an experience for me that I can now, it's all transferable skills that I can take and apply and be somewhere where I am valued, be somewhere where I can actually be my best and not be afraid to express who I am, not be afraid to talk about my languages, talk about the food that I eat, having a lunch break where I'm eating food that just isn't right for me, like processed food that isn't right for me, and the little messages on the microwave saying, please don't warm smelly foods in this kitchen kind of thing. Like just little things that on a daily basis, it's microaggressions that impact you. But it is a choice. As it's easy for me to say it, or I'll say it's easy for me to say, but staying in these environments, it's a choice. And it is a tough pill to swallow. But I think a lot of us need to just start loving ourselves more. The more we love ourselves, the more we'll be more comfortable with evolving and breaking free of the way that we've been conditioned to sort of, stay in those environments. Since everything that's been happening over the past year, I say it a lot, but I think I've been blessed with forecast and being a visionary. So I for something within my consciousness, even before the protests, I could feel something like this happening. There was something internal within myself that I could feel something like this happening regardless. And a lot of people wait to the New Year's. We've literally just, Happy New Year to everyone, by the way. We've literally just gone through a new year, and I get the messages all the time when I speak to people. They're like, "Oh, Chris, what are your New Year's resolutions?" Or, "Oh, I'm going to start doing this differently from now." Me personally, my New Year started from November when I resigned last year, and I consciously decided to resign in November and not wait to the New Year to do it. I've had several conversations even this year already where I've been training. I'm an avid trainer. And I've been doing training things, and whenever I speak to people, they're like, "Oh, Chris, have you already started your training again? You've already started your New Year's resolution to sort of be better?" And I'm like, "No, I just didn't stop. I'm not going to sort of go on, not saying that it's not fringing on it or frowning on it, but I don't do the whole New Year binge sort of thing where everybody binges, they eat, they drink, they do whatever, they let themselves go kind of thing. I do the complete opposite. I actually train harder over that period of time. If I get a sort of notion to eat something or do something that I shouldn't, eat pork or whatever it is, I'll do the complete opposite and try and go and do something like a lot more positive that's going to be more nutritional to me. So in that sense, since the protest happened, for me, it's everything that I sort of foresaw. And it's unfortunate that it took the crushing of a strong black man's neck for this to sort of spark, because we've been having these issues for generations. It's nothing new. It's just that now, because we're all on sort of lockdown and forced to sort of watch the news and see this horrific event that happened, off that, it's been a spiral of events. And in my life personally, it's just been more showing and more raising more awareness about what's actually going on, being able to, for us to be able to put a light on, actually, this is what's been going on for a long time. Now you have to look. You can't. There's no way you can look. We would have to be a real narcissist to be able to look away and ignore and numb what's going on right now. There has to be something really wrong within your consciousness to not identify that. And it's only since this has been happening, I've only seen positive things coming for our community. A lot of hard lessons we need to take on ourselves in regards to our unity. And once again, UTCAI being birthed out of this, and I'm seeing other organizations being birthed and other organizations being more prominent and getting more platforms and a lot more talks. So it's not just the month of October where it's Black History Month and then we all forget and wait till October again. Now it's a consistent theme kind of thing. And this is what I want to sort of encourage. And I do feel UTCAI have that as like, it's practically our manifesto to want to sort of unite with organizations and take this movement forward and be the tangible change that we sort of promote, not just lip service. So that's for myself, since this whole protesting that has happened, and since the platform once again that Pat sort of takes us into and that we get, I'm seeing so many positive things happening. My children can be proud to sort of go into school and be Black, be African, be Caribbean, be themselves, not have to quieten themselves down because we are naturally energetic kind of thing. For me, the fact that my children can grow up in an environment where they feel they can be themselves and they can see themselves as role models is a beautiful thing.
If there's one thing, right, that has troubled me all my life, and obviously Chris has already covered, George's murder and everything. Like, when I saw that, I cried, man. I cried, cried eye water. Like a baby, man. I couldn't, it was enough was enough. And then you got all the other, Breonna Taylor, Aubrey, like. But the one thing that I've taken away, right, and this is just on a personal note, really, really personal note, is forever I've been ashamed of my name. Forever. Like Hutchinson, I've always known from young that it's a slave owner's name, and I've been embarrassed and ashamed of it. I don't know how many of us who are from the Caribbean who have surnames like this who feel the same way, but it's just an issue I've had for a very long time, to the point where when I was in my early, I had planned to change my name, but I started having children way too soon, and then I was, everything, the plans went out the window. But if I had my life a little bit more orderly and had my children in a more orderly manner, I would have definitely tried to change my name before having children, etc., etc. Adopted a name from a part of West Africa where I knew my ancestors were from, and almost started my generation again. That's what I had planned, but I never got around to doing that. So having the name Hutchinson, I've been embarrassed about it, and I've hated it all my life up until now. For the first time in my life, I'm actually proud of my name, like Patrick Hutchinson. People call my name now, and they say it, and it means something. Like, it holds a little bit of weight, and there's a lot of positivity that comes with my name out there now in the ether, on the internet, wherever. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of my name. That is the biggest thing I take away from it. The relief that I got was, when I made reference back to coaching at the weekends, coaching the children of football.
Yeah.
That would definitely have been my release from that, that toxic environment. So that I would answer that with that.
Right.
I know, to be honest, I didn't know of any, or I don't currently know of any safe spaces for, you know, black people who work in the corporate corporate arena, where they can go and you know, air grievances or anything like that. I actually don't know anywhere, or I haven't sort of looked anything up, to be honest.
In regards to actual organisations, I can't actually say that I know many. I do know a lot of mental health organisations that I do refer people to as well. So there's places like Black Minds Matter. There's Off the Record. But these are a lot of organisations which are set up to help people through sort of like going through traumas. Similar to Pat, I would always recommend to people to find an outlet, because there's different sort of coping mechanisms that we can have. But that's, once again, if we want to cope, because coping and healing are two different things. So for myself, Pat said he was doing the training over the weekend. Mine was also training as well. So training myself, my kids do martial arts and train, and I see them train as well. And they teach me what they've learned. So just little different things that I could do. We do yoga as a family, where we cycle, I wall climb, and there's a lot of activities that I do. Obviously, as a family, we need to be very mindful of cost as well. So trying to keep costs down. So it's not about going to so many subscribe services. But one of the services, ironically, that I am actually that I am actually doing a lot of right now is I'm having a lot of people who are referring a lot of their friends and networks to, from children down to secondary school level up to adults in corporate industries or parents. And I've networked, or I've partnered with one of my friends who works in CAMS, another organisation. And we're now sort of doing a service where we're talking to people about the challenges that they're having, and we're trying to signpost them to where we feel, whether it's going to your GP or whether it's actually going to sort of a youth organisation or going to this sort of charity. So that's actually a new service that we have actually started. And I'm having quite a lot of referrals. The only thing, because it's it's not officially a voluntary service, but it's almost a voluntary service now. We're just trying to balance the sort of workload that we're getting, because a lot of people from our community are coming to us saying that they've gone to other services and it's not worked because they've not been able to have representation or understanding or connect with the sort of therapists that they've had. So I'm now having a lot of qualified specialists as well, from family therapists to mental health sort of specialists as well, who are coming to me and sort of offering their services sort of on a voluntary basis. And it's even prominent now within the lockdowns. Mental health has been it's just gone off the chain sort of within our community. And a lot of people, once again, are breaking the stigma and the taboo, instead of trying to internalize it or have this stiff upper lip or sort of just get on with it. A lot of people now, thank heavens, are coming to and starting to sort of talk a lot more and communicate and express that they're actually suffering and that they're going through things. And just sharing, having a conversation like this can make a massive difference in somebody's day. A lot of people do feel that they're alone. We're already sort of marginalized as a community. When it comes down to being an individual as well, it sort of doesn't help when we don't feel we have safe spaces to go to. So I've mentioned quite a few. There's like Thrive, like I've said, Black Minds Matter, Mind, CAMS. There are a lot of organizations out there already, but I think even within a lot of these organizations, they still face some of the challenges that, once again, some of the existing services do.